I'm getting the recording started.
Okay, you good there?
I believe so, yes.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. All right, so let's get started with our Tuesday, October 26th, 2021 meeting of the Admin and Public Works Committee. So welcome, everyone. And first item on the agenda will be roll call.
Okay, Chair Garitano,
Present.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Brost,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper. Do not see him. Councilmember Nyan
Here.
and Councilmember Rambo. Councilmember Hopper.
Doing roll call, if you could just state you're present. Hey, Nathan, can you hear us?
Councilmember Hopper, can you hear me?
Thank you, Lon.
Councilmember Hopper.
There you go.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
Excellent. Just in time.
All right,
For
thank
the
you.
record.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Carla. Is that it?
Yes.
All right. Thanks for that. All right. So next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for October 12th, 2021. Is there someone that would like to make a motion for approval of those minutes? Councilmember Edens, and then seconded by Councilmember Gross. Are there any questions or comments regarding those minutes? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain?
Abstain.
And we have
I
a
wasn't.
one abstention, Councilmember Dodwell. So we'll note that. Thank you. All right. Then I guess next item on the agenda would be public participation. So do we have anyone under public participation? Don't see anyone on Zoom.
Nope, not anybody.
Okay, well then we will proceed forward. All right. City Administrator Cross, did you want to make a recommendation that we adjust the order of the agenda now, or are you okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would like to ask the committee on your agenda under administration, under for action, there are two items. Item number one is the compensation issue, and item number two is the proposed training for council members. And I would like to ask the committee if they wouldn't mind switching the order of those two so that we dealt with the proposed training issue first, which we want City Attorney John Young to be part of that discussion, but then we could go into closed session and talk about the compensation increase issue, where he would then go off the call and then would not be needed for the rest of the meeting. So I'd like to see if the committee is willing to reverse those two items or switch them.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Dodwell, second. Anyone? Councilmember Edens with the second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, we'll do that then. Thank you, Steve. All right,
Thank you.
we will go into public works. There's a for information items, so I guess we'll hand that to Rick.
Actually, Mr.
Or-
Chair, I'm going to handle that one.
I apologize then. Go
Nope,
ahead, Steve.
nope, not a problem. Not a problem. Actually, I was hoping that Councilmember Rambo would be on the call and ask him to give an update. But in his absence, I'll go ahead and just give a real brief update of where we are. The subcommittee met on October the 13th, and Mr. Councilmember Brost and Councilmember Rambo were present. Councilmember Bernalino was unable to attend that meeting, but Sergeant Wendling was also part of that meeting. So we did have a quorum. We had 3 of the 4 members of that subcommittee present, as well as myself, Rick Brown, and Captain Mundell. Basically, so we talked through the issues, and Councilmember Rambo discussed, what is different topics, different alternatives, and so forth. What we left the meeting was that Councilmember Rambo was going to summarize the information, and as soon as he had that information available, would then let me know, and then we would get back on the agenda for the Administration Public Works Committee. So I am hopeful that this will be brought back to the committee at our December, I think it's December 7th meeting of the MNPW. It is in fact the 7th. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to have this on the agenda for the December 7th meeting. And I'm also hopeful, and Councilmember Bernalino, Councilmember Rambo was going to reach out to you and give you an update of what was discussed at that meeting, since you were unable to attend, and hopefully he was able to do that.
He did that. Thanks, Steve.
Yes, sir. So this should be on the agenda for December 7th. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Oh, that's great update there. Thank you, Steve. Okay, then we'll move into for action on the public works. So the first time is a supplemental agreement with the Lockmuir Group for design of Manchester and Taylor resurfacing and signal project.
Thank you, Chair Garitano. I will start on this item. You may be familiar with this project. It is in our 2021 Capital Projects Fund. We do have some funds budgeted for the final design of the project, which is designed to resurface and rehabilitate the section of Manchester Road in front of Schnucks over to Route 100, as well as address the pavement conditions on Taylor Road from 100 down through Manchester, in fact, south of that point as well on Village Hills Parkway. The project will also upgrade the traffic signals, and another emphasis of the project is going to be to address any deficient sidewalks, namely the curb ramps that might be deficient or not up to current standards. And then finally, the goal of the project is to improve the coordination of the signal operation with Route 100. So to do that, we would be installing fiber optic cable that would connect the signals at Taylor Road and Main Street over to 100, and then also at Pierside in Manchester to the signal at 100. So it's a fairly comprehensive project. It did start work in 2020 last year. Lockmuir Group is the consultant that has been working on the project, and the original contract amount was $148,000. At this point, they are through preliminary design of the contract of the project. The total estimated construction cost is about $1.8 million. And you probably recall early this year, I believe it was, or maybe it was actually late last year, we submitted a federal funding application. Lockmuir helped us with putting that together, and we were successful in that effort. So we do have federal funding in hand now for this project. The federal funding allows us to be reimbursed for upwards of 1.44 million of the 1.8 million cost of construction of the project, which is planned for 2023. So what I have to you tonight is a supplemental agreement request for Lockmuir Group, our consultant, to finish up the design of the project. The the main emphasis in the supplement request is the fact that the federal funding does have a downside and that it does make the design effort, the project development effort more difficult, more comprehensive. We have to follow MoDOT's rules. We have to follow their design guidance. That includes the submittal of the plans for preliminary right-of-way and final design reviews and approvals at MoDOT. So the plans are more challenging to put together, and they also have to be submitted to MoDOT for their review and approval. All this essentially adds to the consultant's time and effort necessary to complete the project. And so that's the reason for the supplemental agreement and in large part tonight. So Lockmuller has submitted a request to us, a scope of work with an associated fee, which we did review and go through. And after some back and forth with the consultant, we do have a supplemental agreement request to you tonight in the amount of $42,681 to cover the final design of the project and the associated changes and additional work that's necessary to accommodate the federal funding requirements. So with that, I will turn it over to the committee for any questions, but the recommendation is to approve the supplemental agreement with Lockmuller Group to complete the final design of the project for that amount.
Any questions for Rick on this? Councilmember Dodwell?
Yes, Rick, just real quickly, where the Schnucks driveway is, where the light standards are, and then the right-hand turn lane, are they going to be able to fix the road to a point where that road or that curve out doesn't need to be repaired pretty much every 6 months, because there's deep holes in it?
Yeah.
That I know people have tried to repair, but it's almost like we need to relay that whole surface again and put some good stuff underneath it.
So Councilmember Dodwell, yes, the goal would be to repair any of the deficient areas of the road. For the section of Manchester, I'm envisioning that we're going to mill the prior resurfacing down and then resurface over top of that. Given the existing curbs that are in place and the condition of that existing pavement, that's what I would envision, that we would mill it down and then overlay it back. But we typically, when you do that, you look at some of the pavement areas, if they're deficient and require replacement, that's also part of it in advance of the actual resurfacing work too. So it's kind of a three-part process of replacing pavement, milling it down, and then resurfacing it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that there is something that's underneath that particular section of pavement, because I don't know if we've got a sinkhole or something there, but for years we've been patching that and it's never been a stable location. It's only about a foot by foot wide hole, but I don't know. I've had residents say, well, the rest of the road's okay, but why does this keep happening? So,
well, I might follow up with you later on the specific locations to make sure we've got it covered. When you describe it, I don't know that I honestly know the specific location, so maybe we can follow
go
up.
down to Schnucks tomorrow from City Hall on Old Manchester, headed east, pull in the parking lot, turn around, and then continue heading east, merging onto Old Manchester, headed east.
Okay.
That's where it's at.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one, Rick, that I think I brought, not that I think, I know I brought to your attention too. I call that the perpetual pothole. And then there's the other one on the side, on the lane closest to the gas station. So we kind of got them on both sides.
Okay.
So Katie, as soon as you started talking about the pothole, I think I knew about it. and then I guess, and sorry to jump in, I'll open it up, but Taylor Road, I'm just so looking forward to that, because it sure has been taking a beating lately. So there's a lot of cracks on that road. All right, any questions or any other comments? All right. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion for the recommendation that Rick put in his report here with the for the city to enter into a supplemental agreement with the Lockmuir Group?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so we got Councilmember Hopper and then Councilmember Dodwell. I saw hands up there. Okay, any other questions or comments on the motion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, then that passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sure, go ahead, City Administrator.
you just made a comment about Taylor Road, excuse me, taking a beating. I'm wondering if this committee would like in the future to have a discussion, and I'm just going to throw this out. As you know, I'd sent out emails about 2 of our street piers being destroyed by trucks, large trucks. One outside my window here, and then one up there at 100. And then on Saturday, I came to City Hall, and then there was a what appears a truck going down Taylor Road to the south, just past the south exit of the area where Deerberg's is at, and Rise and Shine, or whatever the restaurant is. I don't have the right name, but anyway, so either they were coming down Taylor and then went off the road, or were trying to make a turn to go southbound on Taylor, and just chewed up the grass terribly. So I'd sent a picture to Rick and Scott Hummel and to Joe Garitano on Saturday, and it's been since taken care of. I wonder if this committee might want to have a discussion at some point in time about maybe limiting the size of trucks. Sorry, excuse me, in town center. Like I say, we've destroyed now two piers, and those are not cheap. One quote I got for one was for $21,000, the one outside my window here. And then we got I haven't seen a quote yet about the other one. So, and we may or may not get insurance. We have a police report for the one here at the end of Main Street, but the one that took out the other one earlier this week or last weekend or whenever it was last week, there's no police report. We don't know who did that. So that's gonna cost the city money. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling on. I just wonder if that might be a topic we want to take up to see if we want to put some limitations in terms of the size of the trucks or the number of axles or something here in town center, because we're experiencing some problems.
Well, I think that you're not going to get any objection of putting this on an agenda. Maybe for the next meeting, we can look at putting it there. Katie, do you have a comment or question? I see a hand up.
I just wanted to comment and say, perhaps we could, if we're replacing everything on Taylor, if we made those medians a little bit narrower, because those trucks are going to have to go through either off of Old Manchester or off of 100 to get into the locations they're going to. So I'm thinking from a design standpoint, if we could follow up with Lockmuir, and while they're doing their final design, see if they could offer us recommendations on what could be done to allow those trucks to make the wider turns they need to make along that strip there. I love having the grass in the middle, but you're right. I mean, we can't say tell them to park out along the shoulder on 109 and deliver things back
Right
into that area.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because Rick and I met yesterday morning and talked about what occurred over the weekend, and we discussed that very thing, because that road coming down Taylor Road is very narrow. I don't know why it was designed so that narrow, at the first place. But if a truck is trying to turn out from, say, having made a delivery at Deerberg's at that most southern exit and then trying to go south on Taylor, there's not a lot of room there. And so Rick and I did talk about maybe shrinking the size of those. So your
Okay.
Your suggestion is well timed.
Okay.
Okay, Dave, looks like you got your hand up. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, an alternative to redesigning Taylor, which I appreciate. I liked its compactness. If we had Crestview through to Main Street, we could make that off of 109. We could make Main Street the only access to town center for trucks over a certain size, and that's wide enough to accommodate that. So instead of changing the sort of the look and feel and so on of town,
It's not a bad idea.
maybe this is something that we can get rolling on that says the impetus now to move forward with that Crestview dilemma that we have about trying to get that turned over to the city. This might be a good issue to go with if we compare the cost of redoing everything on Taylor Road versus a punch through and making Crestview the main street into town. Just a thought.
Appreciate that. Well, looks like, again, no objection. And by the way, Councilmember Rambo is trying to get into the meeting. So Rick, if you could add him in, that'd be great. So we'll put this on the agenda. I think that'll give Steve and Rick time to prepare an update for the committee as to what can be done, but good ideas put forth by Katie and Dave here.
Because
All right.
ultimately, another thing that I would like to bring up at some point in time is talking about those piers. So like this one outside my office, if a truck was coming westbound on Main Street and then wants to hang a right on, I can't read that far, whatever that street is, going up there to the home up here, that's a real tight turn. And so Rick and Scott Hummel and I had a conversation about, do we want to just replace that street pier right there, or perhaps put it someplace else, because any truck, 18-wheeler trying to make that turn, it's going to wipe it out. We've just been apparently lucky up to this point. So that one, and then especially that one out by the bank, that the other one that was busted, that's where somebody's coming up that road, that little road between the bank and then trying to go eastbound on 100. I mean, you barely can get a car in there, much less a truck, and it was hit at the top. So it was definitely a box truck, or some truck, because you could tell it was hit high and twisted, and that's when the thing came crumbling down. So we might want to consider maybe not even having a street pier there. So we're kind of considering all these things. We'll obviously bring these, and I think this would be the appropriate committee to bring that to get your all thoughts about what we think we want to do, as opposed to just spending $20,000 and building a new pier and have it knocked down again 6 months from now, kind of deal. So we're formulating all those plans right now.
All right, good.
Great.
Well, thank you. All right, well, more to come on that. So next on the list is number 2, the review of the 2022 public roads and parks maintenance bids.
But Joe,
Yeah, sorry.
did Rick need a motion from us to approve the supplemental agreement to move it on?
That's appreciate that you asking for that. I'm going to ask
I
Carla.
thought we did that.
You did that.
Did we? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
We have it from first was Councilmember Hopper and then Dodwell.
Katie, I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot. Thank you.
Okay, and it passed. So, okay, we'll move on then to that next item there. So who's going to take that one there? Is that Rick?
Yes, thank you, Chair Garitano. I'll be glad to take it. So every year at this time, we present to you bids for our right-of-way maintenance contractors. We've been doing this every year, to my knowledge, since the inception of the city. As you know, we do maintain our right-of-way in our parks exclusively through the use of private contractors. So for next year's, and we do this on an annual basis. So for next year's contracts, we advertised during September and October for bids, and we opened bids on October 13th of this month. And we did receive a total of 18 contractors submitting bids for work for 2022. So I have provided, if you looked at the memo, and I probably should mention that I updated my memo this afternoon. So if you looked at it earlier, it's slightly different. If you've not, then that's okay. But I did update it slightly.
Okay.
So in my memo, I provided you as Exhibit A, a copy of the bids that were received, and it's a lot of information there, obviously, when you factor in that you've got a dozen and a half contractors and multiple line items that they're potentially bidding on. So I apologize for that, but it's a lot of information. And I've also got as Exhibit B, the recommended contract allocations for 2022. So these are all the budget items that we have worked on through the course of the year. Most of them are all public works budget items. There is one for parks in there as well. So keep in mind it's for public works and for parks that we're potentially approving. We split it out, assuming that the budget is approved as has been developed. And typically that is the case. If it isn't, then we'll have to adjust accordingly. But that's the assumption we make. So we are presenting to you and recommending actually contracts with 19 contractors for 2022 to do work on our public roads and right-of-ways and parks. And I said 19, there's actually the 18 submitted bids, but we wanted to get all of the potential contractors that do work for us over the course of the year included. So we realized we didn't get any information for bids from our electrical contract that typically does work for us. That's Authorized Electric. So we did reach out to them and they provided updated information. So we want to include Authorized Electric in this grouping of potential contractors for 2022. So it's a total of 19 contractors doing work for us. And I would note that 18 of them are contractors that we have worked for previously. We do have a new one in there, MB Construction Solutions, which is a newer company that has done work for the city of Ellisville. We did check with Ellisville and we got some good feedback on them. So we have included them in this group of recommended contractors for 2022. I wanted to point out one thing before I turn it over to questions. We did hold back some of our budget for mowing and for landscaping. And what we're planning on doing is actually bidding separate projects for both of those items. And this would be something fairly new, although it would follow along the same line of what we've already done for maintenance of native landscape areas or stormwater basins that we have under contract with Native Landscape Solutions. So the idea would be to split those items out as more defined contracts, provide the bidders much more specific information regarding the areas that are being maintained or mowed. So the idea we'd have one contract that would be rural right-of-way mowing and one contract that would be landscape maintenance. Most of that landscape maintenance would be in the town center area. So it'd be those areas like the median islands on 109, the roundabout islands, circles on 109, the medians on 100, Manchester Road, those areas that we want to keep looking good. We'd split them out and have them as a separate bid. So that hasn't started. Well, we've started putting that package together. It's not quite ready for bid. The idea would be to bid it this fall, early winter, and then bring it back to you either at the end of the year or early next year, so we have them in place. So I wanted to mention that because that's a new approach, and the goal there would be to get competition, get more folks bidding the work, and keep the competition level high and the prices hopefully low. So I think with that, I'll turn it over again. The recommendation is to go with to recommend contracts with the 18 contractors in the information provided, and I'll be available for any questions you might have.
All right. Is there anyone that wants to make a motion or you have a question? Katie?
I just wanted to verify that you're also including Strecker Road in those improvements
Yes.
or
ma'am,
those
I should.
maintenance. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. I should have said that.
Just somebody may be listening.
Yep.
All right, Councilmember Edens and then Councilmember Gross.
Yeah, just two quick questions. Director Brown, can you remind me on what the abbreviation means, the T and M?
So the T and M responds or correlates to time and materials.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my last question was, I saw on the traffic control prices. I was just wondering, is that just installation, for example, of a stop sign, or does that include the fabrication and the sign and the installation?
Where it's listed separately.
It's under item number C. I was just wondering because I thought $90 seemed like pretty cheap for a stop sign, so I was just wondering if that was the cost to plunk it in the ground.
I was going to double check. So I believe that is the item for a new sign and post. So.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All of it.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
All right, Councilmember Gross. You're on mute, sir.
No, I'm good. I'm okay now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, good. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion with regards and, with the recommendation as the director is proposing, accepting 19 contractor bids? Councilmember Dodwell, and then seconded by Councilmember Edens. Just taking those in order as I see them come up. All right. Any other questions on the motion on the floor? All right. Seeing none, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? All right, none. The motion passes. Thank you for that. All right. Next, under administration, we have 2 for information items. First one is regarding a resident survey. And I think I am speaking to that, right? City Administrator Cross. All right.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
All right, thanks. So I brought this up a while back because we haven't done a citywide comprehensive survey of our residents. And when I say that, it's a survey that just in general talks about how residents feel about the services that they receive from our city government, questions about the direction of the city, things like that. The last time I remember seeing a survey like this was about the time I came into council around 2015. There were numerous responses. It was very good though, and I think it's a good way to ensure that we are have a good pulse on how our residents feel about what they're receiving from their city government. And I think for us, it's a very good tool to make sure that we are addressing those issues, those concerns that come up to the top. I know that you all work really hard and talk to residents, but a survey is just another way of getting that kind of information. So I've put this as a for information item, and in that time, we'll ask our city administrator to help pull that information that was used in the prior survey. And so that this way we could review that and just to determine that, the questions are still relevant. And if that's the case, my hope is that then we would get this survey out sometime in early 2022. We're not time bound. We do have time to do it. I think it's just a good thing for us to do periodically. And it's been a bit of time since we did the last one. The city does do surveys. So, it's not the first one since 2015, but those surveys are just very targeted, whether it's watershed erosion or whether it's the village green or a specific project. So this is more just in general, how are things going? And those questions on that survey are like things like how is your trash service and things like that, things that we need to know. And there are also some open-ended questions where you get some good input from residents. So unless there's any questions, that's what I would just like to ask the city administrator to proceed and then come back to this committee when he has that information pulled together. I did see one hand, Councilmember Bertolino and then Dodwell.
Oh, very quickly, Joe, are you talking about an online survey? Or are you talking about something that would be a fold out from the Gazette that people would fill out and send back in?
Well, I think we have to take into consideration cost and what works best. And so I don't think I could answer that fully, but I would imagine it's probably just something that's online. Although we might want to think about for those residents that don't have access to computer.
Internet.
So to be determined. I think that may be something like that. I don't recall the 2015 if that was paper or online internet.
I don't either.
We could determine that. And there are things too we need to consider. We don't want to load up a survey with 50 questions because nobody will take it. It's too long, and they'll stop after only so many. So we got to make sure we hit the right points on that survey and stuff that benefits the city, knowing for the council in general. Councilmember Dodwell, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to real quickly ask if we could share the questions from that last survey to the entire committee, so that we just have something to look over as to what was done the last time. And maybe that'll prepare us for a more salient discussion when we get together in December.
Yeah, I think it is good. In fact, I would say if we could get that document that is the results that were provided, it's going
That's
to give
good
you
too.
the questions, but you could also see what were the answers back then. And hopefully any of those concerns that were raised back then are not concerns today. So is that okay with you, City Administrator Cross? All right.
Yes.
None is had. Is there anything else you want to add into this since I've nominated you to do this?
No, not at all. I would just ask for the committee's indulgence. This is a big project. So my first thing will be to find the 2015 survey questions and answers and get that to the committee. But then kind of pull together some information in terms of, what was done in the past, paper versus online, and maybe see if I can come up with some pros and cons of either one of those two mediums to do the survey in 2022. And there are definitely pros and cons to doing it each way. So, and then start soliciting input from the committee in terms of the questions that were in 2015 and then any new questions and that sort of thing. So.
Councilmember Eads.
Yeah, so just to kill two birds with one stone, when I was looking at resources for if we developed, a role that covered communications, one of the things that was suggested in the MML lecture I sat through, Joe, was what they were calling a communications audit, where essentially, they did a survey to try to determine if what the cities were communicating was actually what residents wanted to hear about, i.e. if residents say that they want more planning and zoning news, then that's what needed to be on social media and not just event notices. So if we're going to do a survey and already pay for it, that would be a great time to ask questions like, what are things you need to hear more about? And what are the ways you consume your media, right? Like we might find that if we want to get high school volunteers, then we need a TikTok because, so we need to really ask a lot of questions about preferred communication methods, text updates, things like that if we want to create a system. So I would just combine efforts on that survey.
Yeah, and a good point. So what I'll say is hold on to that thought because we will get into the how and the what of what's in the survey. So now more just kind of like kicking the tires, getting this thing going. And again, something that I would say when I say early 2022, it could be something in the first 6 months. It could end up being timed around the time the Gazette goes out so that we leverage a mailing that's already going out, things like that. But just planting that seed that we want to work on, it seems like there's interest in that. All right. Anything else on that item? All right, next item here is accessibility issues. Steve, I think I've got that one too.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So I just wanted to give you an update on this. Councilmember Clark and I had talked about her desire, and you know she's very passionate about accessibility and addressing the needs of folks that have disabilities. So we have been brainstorming just some thoughts as to what could be done. And I'm not saying at a tactical level here, like we're going to do project XYZ, things like that, but it's more about trying to create a vision that we can all align to when it comes to how do we feel about accessibility and inclusion for folks that have disabilities in our city. And it'd be something that could help just guide us as we make decisions in the future. Like, so for example, if we as a city want to create a welcoming place for people of all disabilities, there might be things that then we, as we work on future projects and decisions that get made, that we want to think about that. How do we incorporate that? So it's more of guiding principles for us. And so it's still something that we have been working on. I don't have anything to present to you in front of you, but it's just an idea. And there's components that we've talked about that we'll be sharing with you when we're ready to bring this before you. But things like, as far as like educational components, potentially incorporating a question or two in the survey to understand, what's the population feel, or is there, desire for certain issues there, potentially other ways of getting feedback, inviting some residents to provide firsthand storytelling perspectives to our committee that, have disability issues, things like that. So we'll be bringing back more to the group here. But I just wanted to share that update with you because it's been a while since we talked about it, and Councilmember Clark and I did have those discussions and thought, it would be good to just put some stuff down on paper that we eventually could then share with you and have you react to it. So that's the update that I do have for you. All right, any questions, Councilmember Rambo?
Yeah, I just have a real quick question. My internet keeps going in and out, so I apologize for that. It's still a nightmare out here in Ward 6. Do we currently have some sort of formal checklist or process that we go through? For example, planning and zoning. I'm thinking the development that's going in Prime Place. There were some handicapped parking spaces and so forth, but I'm wondering what else, ramps and so on and so forth. Do we just say, ask them to be ADA compliant and assume that that's enough, which it may or may not be, or do we have some kind of special review for that? And that's just an open question. I guess I would ask Rick Brown, but maybe it's too far afield.
Right. It might be Joe Vunich question. Yeah, it might be something really Joe Vunich, to being the director of planning, to answer that. But I think, and I would most certainly hope that at a minimum, we're meeting the federal regulations, or at least requiring those builders or developers to meet those. So I'm going to just see if either City Administrator Cross or Rick have anything to say.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about a whole lot. It just seemed like a reasonable starting point for some parts of this, but Teresa's concerned about deaf interpretation and so forth, and things go far beyond infrastructure, I guess I would say. So I was just kind of throwing it out there. We can move on. It's not a big deal.
It's on our goals for that we just, our strategic plan.
It's the Administrator Cross. Go ahead.
Thank you. Councilmember Rambo, what I can impart, and Mr. Brown can jump in as well. When we had our initial meeting with Councilmember Clark, back when this first came up to council, and then we had the meeting the next day, she did ask that specific question about building. What Mr. Vunich's answer to her was that all the building codes meet, and in most cases actually exceed, federal guidelines for accessibility for those. And we rely on that. So he assured her, and I think his answer was satisfactory to her in terms of when I mean, they are required, they have, I mean, those architects, and they're signing off on these plans and so forth, they have got to meet all of those codes. Now, one of the things that we don't do, and again, it's the old adage, if you follow the code, you can't get in trouble. You follow the code, you follow the code, you follow the code. We're not going to design our own sidewalks to to say, well, to do this or do that, because if there's no code to fall back on, there's no protection.
Sure, that makes sense.
But the buildings that are being built in the city of Wildwood that we're involved in all meet, federal standards and exceed federal standards. And Mr. Brown is involved to some extent in that sort of thing. So with the chair's permission, I'd ask if Rick wants to just weigh in on his thoughts about that meeting that we had with Mr. Clark, or his own experiences.
I think you covered it pretty well. As far as the street right of way and the parking lot and those kind of things, there are curb ramp requirements. There's Americans with Disability Act guidelines that are followed, and that's the guidance that's used. It's not a checklist necessarily. It's that law. So it's required to be followed, and we do our best to check it. The building itself, I think what Steve was saying is the county, when they review the building plans, are going to be looking towards compliance with the codes and with ADA. And again, it's the law, it has to be followed. So they get more involved on the building itself, on the insides. We usually look more towards the site and the right of way.
Right, sure, thanks. It's ADA, in my inexpert opinion, or in my inexperience, seems to be intended to speak to ramps and countertop heights and those kinds of things, but it may or may not address some of the concerns that Ms. Clark had, and that's kind of why I was asking. The height of buttons and just switches and so forth. I didn't mean to open up a can of worms. We can move on. I think it's good for us to start down this path of trying to see what we can do to accommodate our citizens better than just the complying with the letter of the code. I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Rob. All right. Then we're done with that. So the next, we have two items under for action. And as we started off the meeting, we reversed the order of these two items. So this item, it would be the one that's listed as number 2 on the agenda, which is proposed training for council members. This was added on at the request made at the meeting 2 meetings ago for this committee to discuss. So Councilmember Edens, you had brought that up, and you can have the floor now.
Yeah, my understanding was that that Steve and Carla would come back with a recommendation for programs that we could enroll in as council members, with the clear understanding that the city or council cannot force ourselves to take these educational, for lack of a better word, classes, but that there would be a sort of a gold star system established, so that maybe the incentive that you're publicly acknowledging that you've had equity training or harassment training on the website would be a good carrot, since we don't have the stick method. So today I was hoping to get, like a formal recommendation to council with a list of the programs available to us. Is that ready to go?
I'll go first, but I think there's some other folks that may want to weigh in, and certainly we have John Young on the call as well to help guide us in terms of what we can or cannot do. I understand that there was a discussion a couple meetings ago about doing that. I will say that I'm very uncomfortable with doing that, given the direction that I'm given in terms of what I, as city administrator, or this committee is able to do with regards to either requiring council members to take training or then noting in a public document, if you will, whether they have or they have not. I'm very uncomfortable with that. So I will take direction from this committee, but I will say that I've not done anything about that up to this point in terms of identifying, until I get a little bit clear direction from the city attorney and from others about really where we can go with this. I think I need a little bit more direction. So Chair, I'd ask if with your permission, perhaps yourself or Mr. Young can weigh in, but I think we need a little bit more discussion about that topic.
So we could ask the city attorney to address that matter there, City Administrator Cross. But you, Councilmember Edens, do you want to maybe elaborate more on the, I'm sorry, what is it, the star or, asterisk that you were talking about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just next to the list of, council members, and this is just an option if we wanted to encourage it or kind of reward people for doing extra credit, just simply, next to the council member names or under our information, just, that indicate that we've done additional HR training. But I really thought that today we would have at least a list of what is available, regardless of whether or not we do a public recognition. So I'm just a little confused as to why we don't have an option ready to go for training that's available to us.
Okay, so
yeah, I know we can't require it. My goal is to find an effective way to encourage it. I don't have a problem, I think, necessarily with showing who has done extra work and who hasn't.
okay. Well, I guess do we need the city attorney then at that point? Do we need you to clarify, I guess, what can and can't be done, and kind of maybe, as to if you have any thoughts on, what's the best way. I mean, I'm thinking of something here, but I'll let the city attorney speak to it, just to make sure we're clear of what we can legally and legally can't do, and what potentially, what implications are there with some of the thought that Miss Councilmember Edens mentioned, with some kind of item next to a person's name.
Sure. So first and foremost, and Councilmember Edens made this comment, and she's absolutely right, that we can't require training. It's not a basis for any sort of formalized punishment. So the question becomes, what is or is not an appropriate carrot or stick to encourage the training? And the one thing that's been proposed, and I've had some conversations about with the city administrator about, and I raised this concern to the city administrator, is the use of staff to post something or not post something that could be deemed or construed as shaming for not participating or giving credit for those who do. It puts the staff in a very awkward position. And the only reason I say that is I've seen it play out in other municipalities, even with the simple thing about attendance, of having the staff have to report the attendance of elected officials. Now, what you all decide to do with that information is completely up to you, and you can do with it as you will. If you want to, on your own, give credit or otherwise chastise those who don't participate, that's perfectly fine, and there's no issue there. But I do have a little bit of heartburn about involving the city in doing either one of those tactics, and using official government resources to do it as well, because it could be construed as supporting or opposing a candidate because of their voluntary participation in a training seminar.
Can I ask a clarification program or question? So if that's the legal concern, then don't we have to remove the attendance record from the city newsletter? Because we're already doing that with city resources. So I don't see how this is any different. Do you know what I mean?
Right, and that's a practice that was brought up and commenced prior to my involvement with the city. And I've raised similar concerns because that one has become in the past, has been a source of consternation.
Okay.
So to clarify, John, let's say, for example, we did not have the attendance listed as it is today, and the question was coming before you about putting the attendance. Sounds like that, what would your opinion be on that then? Same as.
And again, it's raising a concern, and more of it is a practical concern than necessarily a legal analysis. But the practical concern is you're really putting the city in a position city staff in the position of reporting whether or not an elected official is doing their job. And that shouldn't be the position of staff to do.
Okay, so maybe Councilmember Edens, if I could ask, because is there a concern on your part that your proposal of wanting to offer this training, are you concerned they will fail because people won't take it? Or do you think maybe a best first opportunity is just to offer it as talked about, like just as an option? And perhaps you've gotten feedback from people already, whether they wish to take it or not. And maybe if you ask the question, maybe everyone will say, yeah, I'll take it. And we don't have to go down that path. Like maybe a first attempt is to see how it goes, just putting it out there. But if there's concern that you got to put it out there and people are going to take it, I think the bigger issue that needs to be addressed is then creating that desire, that purpose for wanting to take it versus it becoming a check the box exercise.
I think it's both. I'm not concerned about this group of council members wanting to do it at all. I'm concerned about the next group or future groups maybe wanting to do it because it does take time. And if you have to do it in another workplace, it may seem excessive. But I think it's a public facing statement of values. And so I know that I've had constituents raise concerns to me and ask if we were doing certain types of training, and I would like to be able to tell them, yes, we are, and also have the public be able to know who has participated and exactly what the program is. And so there would still need to be even if you didn't list who is taking it, I would still think there needed to be information about that on the website so people could look up what types of programs we have.
All right. Well,
but I don't have a problem. I mean,
yeah.
I understand from Attorney Young's perspective about the newsletter and issues. I don't really have a problem with it. I guess I'm already used to that kind of reporting, and to me it's the same thing as whether or not somebody's here in the minutes or not. And I don't have a problem with being super aggressive and listing who's taken extra classes or not, even if it's on a separate page.
Well, I guess maybe some questions that might help in answering is, would the training be required annually? Would it be required by term? If someone does not renew the training, does that mean that their asterisk expires? Those might be some questions that.
That's what I thought we would have tonight, was a recommendation, because I thought we left it at the last meeting that we would come back and staff would recommend what, because I'm not in charge of the budget, so I don't know what we can afford to collect or not, but I would assume most of these are annual or one time only. Except for other things like IT training and things like that we constantly need re-upped.
Well, I did see a couple hands up. So, and I hope I'm getting the order correctly. So Councilmember Rambo, Bertolino, and Dodwell, I see right now.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I felt bad when the last Gazette came out because I was marked absent on a committee meeting in February, and it wasn't worth trying to do the forensics and get it straightened out. But I think maybe we started tracking attendance because we were being paid on a per meeting basis. That could be some of it. Essentially, and now I felt bad because my internet was down and I probably didn't get marked present. So I hope Carla takes care of that. But I have no problem with tracking my presence or tracking training. It says that we care, and it's just making a positive statement about how seriously we take our jobs. I agree with Ms. Edens. Is it in a private organization, you have mandatory diversity training and those kinds of things. And so Mr. Young may tell me that there's a difference between private and public organizations in this particular circumstance. But I think we should find some way to have voluntary training and track it and present it to the public. It's a sort of a minimum standard that we're asking council members to meet. So that's my take on it.
The Attorney Young, did you want to answer his question about private versus, I guess, where we are today and how we view it?
Well, I mean, I think Councilmember Rambo knows the answer because he alluded to it, that there is obviously a difference between government, especially elected officials, and private businesses. I mean, and frankly, even city employees. The city can require its employees to perform these training. The city administrator can require employees to do certain training requirements as a condition of their continued employment. The issue is with elected officials, we just can't condition your continuation as an elected official on participation in certain training exercises.
So I was talking about voluntary and some demonstrated voluntary participation in the same manner as we take attendance. I wasn't suggesting that we should make it mandatory, although I think I'm still vague on what the rationale might be for not being able to make elected folks like myself take some sort of diversity training or just whatever the heck it is.
Okay. In terms of the reporting isn't so much a matter of the reporting in and of itself. The concern is really just having putting the responsibility on city staff to report it. Because it becomes a bit of a political football, and that you want to keep staff as isolated from that as possible. In my suggestion, that'd be my suggestion and recommendation. And in terms of the question of the lack of clarity on why we can't require it of elected officials, and the answer is simply we don't have that stick. In terms of employee, the stick is your continued employment is conditioned on it. Well, the city is unable to condition your continued seat on the city council on training because the charter just does not provide or allow for that.
So it'd be a major deal to make it to allow us to do that as a city.
Yeah. It would require
okay, thank you.
Charter amendment.
Councilmember Bertolino, I believe you're next. Then I have Dodwell and then Hopper.
Yeah, I think we're off on a very, very bad path to start putting up stars or no stars behind names. What do you do with the next people to come in? Is there now a whole curriculum that a future council member has to go through to get their stars on the chart? I think it's a bad idea. Don't go there. Let's get away from this. Now, if the city or the municipal league or others offer programs of training that members of the council would like to voluntarily participate in, by all means do it. But this come up with curriculums and putting stars behind names, it's a bad idea. Let's stop talking about it.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Bertolino. Councilmember Dodwell.
Sorry about that. I was going to make a suggestion that rather than have a set curriculum or a set number of classes that you need to take over a period of time, that one of the things that I think has been missing, and sometimes we've gotten off on the wrong foot when we start up a new council, is we need to have some kind of a training session to start our new council each year, be it an offsite collaborative meeting. We need to go over policies, procedures, and processes. We do it with new folks for about a couple of hours or so, but I don't think it would be bad for all of us to participate in that, and then do some what if scenarios of things that we have to deal with at the council, so that people feel more comfortable when they do come into a council meeting. That was just a thought I had. Rather than requiring things, this is more of a informational, let's make sure all of the council members have met each other, have been able to shake each other's hand, have been able to spend 3 to 4 hours in a room together, learning about what it means to be a council member. I don't have the curriculum at the top of my fingers, but some of the topics that Ms. Edens has talked about, I don't know. Attorney Young, could those be discussed, that we all have to be cognizant of ADA? We all have to be cognizant of sexual harassment. We all have to be cognizant of proper etiquette in the council chambers and with each other. I know those are very simple things, but through the years, we've had different individuals come in with different perspectives on that. And I was just thinking maybe we could hold some kind of a discussion as a group prior to our first meeting, but that may be impossible too.
And again, I have no objection to training as a general principle, and I think it's always good to do training. So I'm not dissuading the city from having that training available.
So, Councilmember Dodwell, I think you're onto something that's good. Maybe it's a recommendation to kind of enhance the orientation that's offered. And again, I think kind of in the same dilemma there, right? I mean, you could offer it, but doesn't mean that they have to show up. And we've seen that happen. So I do think either way, coming out of this one item here, either way, I think there's still a thought there about just looking at that orientation and seeing how that could be more robust, what ideas there could be. Okay, let's see. I've got Councilmember Hopper next, and then Councilmember Edens.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll try to keep the points together. I had a few, but I sort of kind of lost them along the way here. But I mean, I think that I kind of agree that this, like having a demarcation or something that indicates completion sets a, I think, not an ideal precedent. I understand what Attorney Young is saying of when you're asking a city employee to mark a council member's I guess satisfaction to a thing. Well, what happens if, just to throw an example, well, we have Steve is responsible for that, and then Steve's out on vacation and Rob finishes his training, but it didn't get put on the website, and then it gets lost in the mix. Now somebody could say, well, Steve was trying to get Rob kicked out of city council and not get him elected again because he didn't mark that. I understand that concern with it, but I will say that I agree with Councilmember Edens in the fact that, we obviously want to portray that and put the message out that we have are taking steps to do that. So maybe it's more along the lines of, we have a statement from the city of, we take pride in our inclusiveness and and our sensitivity to those matters. And this is sort of the steps that we take. And part of that, as a bullet point of what we do in our plan to be more inclusive, is that we do provide training for all employee staff and for city council to be able to take this training to help them understand, but more inclusive actions to take. But I think once you start going down these, realistically incentivizing it, then I think it does go down kind of a bad path. And ultimately, we're all elected, right? So if the city offers training and I don't take it, and it comes time for my election to come up, then it's really kind of on the citizens to decide whether that's an important matter to them and to ask whether I've taken that or not. Or if somebody's running against me, they could say, hey, you didn't take this training, so why would you vote for this person? But I agree, it's kind of a slippery slope. I think could then start to just go kind of down the rails a little bit. So I love the idea of having training and having it available and having information out there to our residents that we do take it seriously, and we do have this available, and we want to obviously bring attention to that. But again, it's iffy once you start marking things for it. So that's my thought.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Edens, you're up next.
Had to get all my buttons pushed. Okay, so it looks like there's not an appetite to mark anything for completion. I think that's a little wishy-washy, and I don't agree with it, but that's okay if that's what this group feels like. But I do have to disagree with Councilmember Bertolino. Right now, the MML isn't offering anything like this, so the city needs to offer the training. I'm not talking about a series of coursework. I'm just talking about the same thing that you would do as an employee, you would just optionally do as a council member. My concern is just when we don't record it for our citizens, how do they know when they go to vote whether or not somebody's done it? Because you could lie about it. So, right, I had 2 citizens reach out to me and Dawn and say, I want diversity and inclusion training and I want it now. And this was well over a year ago. And so I'm going to have a really hard time looking them in the face and just saying, oh, as a general statement, we value this, but you'll never be able to figure out who's taken it, and it's optional, by the way. That's really hard to explain to your constituents with that accountability there. Take our word for it, we value it, but we can't prove it. That's a hard position to be in when you're talking to your constituents. But if nothing else, we just need to have the same programs that our staff decides to do accessible to us, the elected officials. And that's all I'm asking for.
See, Councilmember Brost, you had your hand up, and then I see City Administrator Cross as well.
Yeah, I would probably go along with Dave, and I wouldn't want to move down this path. I think a couple things. One is we're a pretty diverse group of individuals with a variety of skills, and I think I think in part that's what makes us good. I would say is that it's incumbent upon each of us to serve our respective wards and to serve the city, and I think we need to do that as we see fit. And if it's determined that people don't think we're doing it, then we don't get reelected. And I'd also say is that, I do believe we have a very good council. I think we want to have a strong demand to continue in the years to come. And I remember early on, there was a discussion as to, whether or not council members should get paid at all. And there's a group that says, well, gosh, yeah, I don't think we should get paid. I mean, I'll do it as a volunteer. And then I remember a discussion that really hit hard for me was that if you don't pay, you might eliminate a group of people. And I remember things discussed as if somebody has to pay for a babysitter, if there could be other issues. So by doing that, you might eliminate potential candidates and further, you might say, opportunity for an excellent composition of the council. and I view this as maybe going in that direction, is that maybe it's more demand and maybe you're going to alienate some people that really could bring forward a skill set that is, good for the city. I'm elected. If it turns out to be that people don't like the fact that I do or don't attend a course, that's the beauty of the vote. And so I just don't want to, and then there's also, I think there's further demand on the city to administer it. And so that's my point. Thank you.
All right, City Administrator Cross, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. What I can do for the committee and what I would be perfectly willing to do. A few meetings ago, I introduced a program that our HR director, Carla, identified as a training tool, and it was called Media Partners. Media Partners, you may recall, is a very comprehensive, it's a group of, all kinds of modules, about $1,000 per module, but it has, it's very, very comprehensive, and we will use that when appropriate as a tool for training that I might want to ask of the employees. But what I'd like to do with this committee's permission is forward that that information to you all that identifies all the programs and so forth, and let you all decide individually or as a committee or as a group of people if you'd like to attend one of those. But I'd like, the council individually or as a group, can decide if you want to do something, because like I say, it is about $1,000 per module. And so if there's a group of folks that want to attend a particular module, then we can arrange that. Carla and I can take care of that, set that up, and it can be done. You pay for the module, and then you can do it, at your leisure, online kind of thing. But at a minimum, I will go ahead and forward that group of all the training tools that are available through Media Partners, and then let you all browse through that and decide, individually if there's something you'd like to take. But I do want to caution that there is a cost involved to it. But that doesn't necessarily preclude doing the training, but certainly you have the option to pick and choose what you'd like to do, and then we can coordinate that training.
All right, Councilmember Edens, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I think it would be good when we have the list in front of us again, if we'd make just a formal recommendation as a committee going forward to council. These are the things we see value in, and this is what we would recommend that our elected officials do. I'm a little concerned here because I feel like we're backpedaling. We had other meetings where we talked about the value for our employees and our elected officials to do this, because this is an industry standard, especially in the private sector. And certainly we're not a private company, but when there's good practices, it's important to borrow some of those in government. And certainly other governments have this. Clayton has an entire committee on diversity and inclusion, and that's what they specialize in, and they have training. I just want to leave you with a thought that if someone harasses somebody else on this council, there's very little you can legally do, including not require them, right, to take harassment training. So wouldn't it be nice if we provided that opportunity and encouraged people to do that up front? Not only for the perpetrators, so that the expectations are very clear, but for anybody that experiences something, so that they might know what their rights are and can better advocate for themselves. Yeah, put it up front. I don't understand how we're going backwards on this conversation. I really don't. I thought we established that this was a good thing to do, and the question was how we're going to offer it, not whether we would offer it at all.
Right. I don't see any other hands up, so I think, Councilmember Rambo, go ahead.
Yeah, real quickly. I always felt that I was unlikely to be harassed. It's generally men harassing women and so forth. I've had a lot of diversity training and harassment training and so forth, just as a matter of course in the corporate world. But I had an online stalker, and it was the most miserable experience of my life, and it was just terrible. It was overwhelming and all consuming, and I would like to help others on council now and in the future avoid such situations. And I think training would help with that. And I think it makes us better. And so I wasn't looking to get a list of gold stars. I'm not a gold star kind of guy. I was looking for the statement that it makes for us as a group that we have decided to participate in that sort of training. That's just a clarification I wanted to provide.
I think it's evident that probably, training, I think the spirit of training is a good thing, but I think given the way we are a city government, the comments that the city attorney shared, it sounds like probably the best way to move forward would just be to, when the city has it, to offer it as optional. If any city council members wish to take advantage of it, then city administrator Steve Cross will be able to share that. And I think probably a good thing that maybe some folks see what it is so that it's appropriate for this type of role. Some training is designed for the office environment, people sitting in cubes. Obviously we're a little bit different here with this. And Councilmember Bertolino, retired HR executive, probably can conduct this training for us. So I'm sure he's got some thoughts, but I think just based on what the city attorney has shared and, I guess the possible politicization, I can't get the word out, politicizing of something like, like a star or something like that could cause some questions. So I don't think I sense any other than, offering it as optional with the city administrator Cross sharing that information when he is able to provide that. So any other final comments? I don't see any other hands on that. So I guess at this point, then we'll then be able to close out this item here. So we do have another item on the agenda, which is the number 1 on the agenda, which is compensation increase for a city attorney and assistant prosecuting attorney. And just before you do jump off on that, this item, I think, please keep me honest here, City Attorney Young. We're gonna, I guess, do we have to make a motion to go into, we'd like to just do this in closed session, and it pertains to RSMO 610.021, what is that, section 13?
Yes, sir.
Of that item there, which regards to, let me see, do I have to read this? Identifiable personal records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to employees or applicants for employment. So with that, since we will be going into closed session for anyone that is watching, we're going to cease broadcasting on this. And then we will then, after we come out of closed session, we will adjourn the meeting, but we do need to get a motion in order to go into closed session before we do that. City Attorney Young, did I cover all that correctly? Or
Yes. Motion and a roll call vote to go into closed session. Absolutely.
okay.
Now,
So
I will say, Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, a discussion about me is appropriately to be done, and the merits of our work and our firm is appropriate for closed session. I would recommend to you that the vote on the change in compensation be done open.
after coming out of closed session.
Yes, sir.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that advisement there. So therefore, we do need to get a motion in order to go into closed session under RSMO 610.021, section 13, made by Councilmember Gross, seconded by Councilmember Nyan. And we'll need a roll call vote.
Chair Garitano,
Yes?
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Nyhan,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes.
Could I just ask Councilmember Dodwell, could you put your video on and just, again, we want to record that vote because you have to have video for roll call votes.
Okay, Councilmember Dodwell.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you.
Okay, all right. So therefore now we'll go into closed session. So just hold off on just a moment there while Rick does his work here. And we do have one person in the attendee list, but it is Councilmember Clark. So as a council member, you're an ex officio member, you can certainly sit in on that if you'd like. But we'll need to know. So I don't know if you could type a message or let us know if you want to join in or just stay where you are. But we're still recording at this point.
If I can speak for Ms. Clark, she's on the road, so she's
Okay.
not likely to be able to respond.
Okay, so we'll certainly keep her there. The one thing I will, since we are in closed, just be aware of your surroundings because it is closed matter.
So just to clarify, I'm going to stop the live stream and the recording.
We definitely want to stop the live stream. I do think we stopped the recording too at city meetings. Yeah, they shut everything down.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
right, I'm going to proceed to do
Just
that,
don't-
if that's okay.
Yep, just don't shut the Zoom.
Yeah, understood. We'll try our best here.
All right, I see a recording and we are back on live stream.
I believe so.
All right, so back to the item that we have here on the agenda, continuing our meeting here. So we have the memorandum by the city administrator. Do you have anything you want to speak regarding that memorandum at this point, or are you looking for a motion based on the recommendation in the memorandum?
I would like to speak, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Again, along with the memorandum, I included the ordinance that was passed back in 2016 when the city attorney was hired in May of 2016. And I also attached to that the legal services agreement. That legal services agreement references two items. In section 6, it talks about the monthly retainer at that time of $3,000 per month. And then in section 7, it identified the hourly rates for the various levels of individuals at Hamilton Weber, from the partner, John Young, to all other partners, to staff and so forth. I also identify in my memorandum the hourly rate that is currently being charged by the assistant prosecuting attorney. And that is where I need to make a clarification, because the information there's a couple pieces to that. I identify that the prosecuting attorney is earning $90 per hour and has been earning that same rate since 2004. Well, there's another component to his pay that I was unaware of, and that is where the assistant prosecuting attorney earns $400 per court session when he attends court, and $100 for a partial court session. The $90 per hour is for special prosecution matters only. And so there's additional compensation when he attends court. So in terms of the proposed increases, let me go back to John Young, the city attorney. John Young has never in 5 years asked for a raise. for his firm. What John Young has said to me and what John Young has said to the mayor is, if you feel it is justified when raises are given to staff, if you feel that we as a firm have earned an increase, we'd like you to consider us along the same lines. That is all he has ever said. He's never identified a dollar amount, a percentage, or anything. Just simply said, if you feel that we've done a good job, and when you're giving raises to everybody else, if it's in the budget, maybe you give one to us as well. It's never happened in the 5 years since we have hired Hamilton Weber. So I put some numbers in there after some consideration, but they are numbers for discussion. They're not hard and fast or anything like that. At $3,000, I suggested a 10% increase, taking it to $3,300. As far as the hourly rates, I used a 4% increase. And the reason I chose 4% is that it mirrors the suggested raise to staff for 2022. And that's what's built into the budget. So I felt a little uncomfortable giving a higher percentage raise to a contractor, if you will, higher than what we're giving to city staff. So that is, I mean, at the end of the day, that's about all the science that's into it. I'm trying to maintain some equity, but I also want to be able to give the city attorney as well as the assistant prosecuting attorney some form of increase that's equitable to reflect the job that they've done, but also in line with what we're doing with staff. But it is a starting point. It is something that is open for discussion with you all, the committee.
All right, thank you for that, City Administrator Cross. I see Councilmember Bertolino had his hand up, then followed by Councilmember Rambo. Councilmember Bertolino.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Very quickly, Steve, two questions. One is, what did we pay out in total in the last fiscal year to Hamilton Weber? We're talking here about just the retainer part, but how much did the city actually pay in total? That's more of a curiosity question than anything else. But the second part of the question is, how does this compare with other cities in the area? Do we have that comparative data? Thanks.
Mr. Bertolino, I will need to check into both of those in terms of how much we have paid over, say, 2021, at least to date, and what we extrapolate what will happen. We have one more bill coming, well, maybe two, the November, December bill, but if it's in line with where we are now. So I can give you a pretty close approximation of what we will have spent with the firm in total for 2021 to Hamilton Weber. With regards to what other municipalities are doing with their city attorney, for those that have a city attorney, I would need to look into that. And I will do so.
If I may, Joe, it was a follow-up. Given what Steve has just said, and I would be ready to jump in and say, I think we ought to raise it more than 10%. That would be my first, but I want to have something to go on. And that would be comparison with others. I hate to stall on this, but I hate to go ahead and make this recommendation. So yeah, 3,300 is great. Then find out that Chesterfield's paying 5,000 and, you know, Town and Country is paying 4,000. I'd like to have that data before we say finally, yeah, this is a recommendation, because I think it might be higher than the 3,300 that we're proposing here.
City Administrator Cross, do you want to comment on that, or?
I would say I'm trying to recall previous conversations with the city attorney in terms of now, and as you know, the city attorney represents other cities besides Wildwood. And we may be on the low side in terms of what he's being paid versus what he's being paid in the other municipalities. I will confirm that. That's just kind of what I'm remembering, but I don't want to make ask for a vote on something without confirming that number.
Right. So therefore, are you okay with if we don't have a vote tonight, for you to get that additional information? Our next meeting is not till December.
Absolutely. he's gone 5 years. Another month is not going to
Well,
make anything. So I will have all that information and more. Anything else that you all are looking for, I will definitely have available to you by the next meeting.
well, I'm really asking more because when do we finalize the budget for 2022? Because obviously you have to plug in the number. If it's a balanced budget, we want to be aware if anything triggers it to get out of balance.
The number that we've put into the budget right now is just an approximation of what we feel based on previous. So if we were to give the city attorney a bump, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to change the budget per se.
Got it. Okay.
We don't know what might be required of John, what services we're going to require. So we're not talking about a whole lot of extra money. So in terms of the budget, the next committee meeting, okay, is when we're going to do the public hearing. I'll be presenting the budget to the public, but I don't think I would go back and change the budget, to be honest with you.
Got it. Okay. As long as that's okay, because I know we do some of this timing just to coincide with the budget process. And there are some things that do impact and others may not be as significant to require a modification. So, all right. So therefore we do have that option there. Let me go to Councilmember Rambo. He's got his hand up.
Right. I was going to ask the same question as Mr. Bertolino, what the going rate is, so we can have some context for this decision. But I'm not in the habit of giving away a dollar that I don't have to, but we really do get exceptional quality work from Hamilton Weber. I think everyone agreed with that. And this seems like if you prorate this, the raise that Mr. Cross is proposing over the several years it's been since they've had a raise, we're talking about a pittance. And if the COLA for this year was 5.9%, I also agree with Mr. Bertolino that we owe them, sort of market rate compensation. And I would say a little bit more, because we certainly don't want to be the municipality that drops off because they're too busy and we don't pay them as much as some of the others. So I'm in support of waiting until Mr. Cross does his research, and I would recommend, as Dave did, that we consider a little bit a higher rate. That's my spiel.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Dodwell, I did see your hand up.
I just wanted to ask whether or not we could have a special committee meeting before December if we needed to finalize this information so that it can be easily added into the budget and approved by the full council when we're going to do that anyway.
Well, I am going to look for an opinion, I guess, from City Administrator Cross. I mean, we could always schedule an additional meeting, but I feel like based on what City Administrator Cross and looking at the $300 right now increase, which is as it is. So I think that right now, we would probably not be looking for much more. I don't know. I will defer to City Administrator Cross. Let me take that back. What's your thoughts on it? Do you feel like it, or you still stayed with your word before?
I think I would reiterate what I said before, is
Okay.
that I'm not inclined to change the budget at this point. We do have the opportunity at mid-year to adjust the budget if we're in any of the categories. Okay. So I would be inclined to, whatever this committee decides to give to them, and then just run with it, see where things stand, and then address it at mid-year. And if we need to make a budget change there, but we're so far down the road, we're ready to go.
Okay. Okay.
Public hearing, I would leave the budget as is.
Okay. So in that case, then we will definitely put this on for December. What about the other item regarding the assistant prosecuting attorney? Any comments or thoughts on that?
Who are you asking? The committee?
Just a committee, or do you want to comment on that?
I'll let the, as I mentioned, and I apologize that I was not able to provide the full information about the assistant prosecuting attorney. But again, this gentleman is paid $400 for each court session that he attends, and $100 for each partial, as well as $90 per hour for the special prosecution matters. But again, I think it would probably be in the same manner that I'm going to do for John Young, is get some detail in terms of what we have paid to this gentleman for those court sessions, as well as the $90 per hour for any special prosecution matters. Give you guys an idea of what has occurred in 2021, and then come back armed with that information at the December meeting as well.
Councilmember Earlino, did you have your hand up? I noticed it before. But...
Steve just said what I was hoping you'd say is, get the similar data and come back to us. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Hopper, it looks like your hand went down too. All right, so at this point then, Councilmember Rambo, your hand is up now.
That would, the information that Mr. Cross is going off to look for would include sort of the market rate, as to the extent we can determine it from other municipalities. Is that the case?
Yes, sir.
Right, great, okay. Thank you.
That's it. He's got the bat phone. He picks it up. All the city administrators get on the phone. He can get that. All right, then I don't think we'll have any action on this side. We'll defer to December. So we will then, we don't have any other items. We have some items on the not ready for action list, which means we're still working on them. It should be coming up soon. Anything under miscellaneous? City Administrator Cross.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, as you and I discussed, I would like to just give a brief update on those items that are not ready for action, and just kind of let everybody know where we're at and when that's coming to the this committee, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay.
And I think that's consensus. Somebody's in agreement.
I was going to say, I'm following the lead of that person.
The dog is on board.
Oh, good. The EV charging station, real quick, that will be on the agenda on our December meeting for discussion. Rick and I will be finalizing information that we will present to this committee at the December meeting. The review of IT system and so forth. I had mentioned to you all before that I have documentation from ThrottleNet, and I have documentation from Civic Plus that indicates all our systems are protected, our website is protected, etc. I also mentioned that I'm going to choose my words carefully here, that I'm looking at information from a third party. And when I get the information from a third party, then I can share a little bit more information about that. But that would probably be in closed session. So that is getting close. And then lastly, the social media policy. John Young and I had a conversation at the end of last week, and we are working on the social media policy. We have a policy because it actually came up a week ago, where we did get a sunshine request from someone that was inquiring about a social media policy. We have a policy that was passed, but it has to do simply with comments made on, I think, on the website or something, but it's not a true social media policy that addresses, council and those kinds of things. So he and I are looking at a draft of that. And so that's going to be coming to the council. We probably won't have a second, or it'll come back to this committee. That'll probably be in January. I'm guessing that we would have that. So I just wanted to give everybody an update that those three items that are listed as high priority are getting very close to coming to the committee then, either in December or January. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, and I'll just add one other miscellaneous item for this committee here. Carla did ask, as she is preparing the calendar for next year regarding meetings, she had asked about the time for this meeting. So we are currently meeting at 5:30 because of the Zoom environment. So if there's any opinion about changing that time, certainly open to hearing that from you and let us know. Right now, we'll put it on the calendar to continue at 5:30. And as I shared previously with you, I think we will look to see that in 2022, probably we'll look at maybe 2 meetings during the year where we have them on site just to get the group together and have some face-to-face time as well. And when we do that, that'll be a later time to allow for people to get physically there, from wherever they're coming from. So we'll look at that probably sometime like a spring date and a fall date or something like that. So that's the only other update I've got there. So next meeting is on December 7th. And with that, anybody would like to make a motion to adjourn? Councilmember Bertolino,
Adjourn.
need a second. Otherwise, Councilmember Hopper. All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion passes. Thank you and have a great night.
Thanks.
You guys too.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.